Hey folks! Some weeks ago I did a literal compulsive purchase. It happened that I suddenly stumbled upon a gameplay video of a certain game called Felvidec, watched some glimpses of it and thought, damn, this stuff looks rad. And then I bought it immediately. So, Felvidec is an indie JRPG made with RPG Maker MV and is characterized by these hand-painted monochrome visuals, the historical setting, and the irreverent tones where characters speak a mix of archaic English and Slovak. The title Felvidec can be translated as Upper Hungary, and the game is claimed to be set in the 15th century Slovakia, though the author took several historical liberties, as the game is to be considered more like a fantasy story set in a different timeline. We play as Pavel, this drunken knight who is quite tired of life and grieving for his wife who left him. In the opening scene, we see him drinking wine until a sort of distant explosion visible from his window scares him, and he runs to ask his lord Joseph to sound the alarm. He is then instructed to go and investigate the old ruins on the hill, but not before stopping by the monk Matej and asking for advice because he is decided in a pitiful state and needs spiritual help. So Matej joins the party as a spiritual guide, befriends Pavel, and it's the beginning of a very strange journey. Our curious duo of heroes will face ascites, brigands, nasty cultists, and even mutants. It's a twisted story that mixes serious and facetious, especially the latter, full of extravagant characters and silly quests, in which our protagonists will have to investigate the rise of a group of cultists who dupe local Yaff into embracing the fate in Zurvan, in the hope that the ascites will be driven out of their land. But beyond the promises lies something very shady and disturbing. The overall writing of this game is just insane. It never takes itself seriously, and there's a constant mockery of Catholic bigotry. Most of the NPCs are illiterate commoners dominated by religion, and the general characterization even recalls the craziest Monty Pythons, and is all enriched by surreal and grotesque events. Seriously, a lot of strange stuff happens in this game. Just at the beginning, a messenger gets tricked in drinking some rotten wine and contracts severe food poisoning, and later Pavel must pursue him following his tracks. And no, that's not blood. By the way, the chase ends with Pavel getting mad at his apparently cheating wife, causing a mess, and everything finishes with this phrase that kinda summarizes the entire game. Later, I found funny when Matej forces Pavel in exchange their clothes in order to gather information from someone, since Pavel would screw everything up because of alcohol, but instead, is Matej the one who gets drunk and ruins everything, and so we'll see Pavel in monk robes taking matters into his own hands, and it's freaking funny. It's an investigative story like few others. I liked the bromance between Pavel and Matej, especially how Pavel is always with a big smile on his face despite all the bullshit that happens but still takes everything lightly. Then the silly characterization of the many bizarre characters which they encounter, and I also appreciated the ending. Also, the game contains some side content easily missable. For example, at the beginning I met a naked man by the river whose clothes had been stolen, but instead of helping him immediately, I concentrated on continuing the main story, and later the man just disappeared from his spot without a chance of finishing the subquest. For this reason, between one important event and the other, I've always scouted the entire map in search of potential new subquests and completed them immediately, because I also found repercussions on the main quest. Talking about gameplay, the exploration is quite basic, and fights are turn-based and require a bit of strategy. I found interesting that there's no leveling, but instead the character stats and abilities depend from equipments. Better armors will increase HPs, the shields enhance defenses, accessories can increase the MPs, here called tools, and different kind of weapons will unlock different special attacks. Besides, Scattered around the environments, we can find consumables that will increase permanently some stats, like the max HPs, inflicted damages, or the tools points, but are quite rare, and sometimes are given from NPCs as a compensation for a side quest. The character's special abilities, here called Fiends, play a major role. They consume tools points, and their effects in battle determine victory. For example, half swording will decrease defenses, and the shield bash can stand the majority of enemies for some turns. For the majority of fights, Pavel and Matei are always outnumbered, and rarely, depending also by some choices, are aided by other characters, which can have special abilities and weapons, like Lord Joseph, who can use his gun for high damages, but then he loses a turn to reload his weapon. Overly with the right use of Fiends is not such a challenging game. I rarely had to avoid some fights or face the game over screen. Besides, between some struggles I was able to easily heal the party by resting in special beds or praying at the altars, and just near the end I was forced to use a lot of healing items during fights, especially the porridge to recover MPs. As for the graphics, I have already praised the art direction, but I should also appreciate the fight animations, which make the fights more interesting. Presumably the author must have been inspired by another cult indie called Hylix, which I still have to play. Continuing, I liked a lot the FMV movies made in rough 3D graphics that go very well with the general style. They are very characteristic and emphasize important events. And accompanying the player, there's a brilliant soundtrack with varied tones, ranging from medieval and atmospheric pieces to more psychedelic compositions, well dimmed with the strangest encounters. And now I think there's nothing else important to say about Velvidek. It's a gem that I'm happy to have discovered and that I think is fully worth the 10 euros I paid. It lasted me a good 5 hours and in the end I wanted more. That said, as always, a warm thanks to all viewers, and see you in the next entry.